The ice storms of Europa howled against the reinforced windows of Meridian Outpost, but Captain Isabella Torres barely noticed them anymore. After 3 years stationed on Jupiter's moon, the constant beating of ice particles against metal and glass had become as natural as breathing. She stood at the command center's main viewport, watching the ghostly dance of particles in Europa's thin atmosphere, illuminated by Jupiter's massive presence looming above. "Captain, we're picking up something unusual in Sector 7. Lieutenant Raj Patel's voice cut through her contemplation. His dark eyes were fixed on the sensor array, fingers dancing across the holographic interface. "It's like nothing we've seen before." Isabella moved swiftly to his station, her movements precise despite the low gravity. The sensor readings showed an object moving through Europa's ice layer, too controlled to be natural, too advanced to be human. "Show me the thermal imaging," she ordered, keeping her voice steady despite the acceleration of her pulse. The screen shifted, revealing a heat signature that pulsed with an alien rhythm. It was a ship, but unlike any in the United Earth Fleet's database. As they watched, it breached through the ice layer, rising into the thin atmosphere like a leviathan from ancient tales. "Battle stations," Isabella commanded, and klaxons immediately filled the outpost. The crew of 50 moved with practiced efficiency, but she could sense their fear. This was what they'd trained for, but hoped would never happen. First contact, and it wasn't looking peaceful. The alien vessel hung in the sky, its surface shifting like liquid metal under Jupiter's light. It was beautiful in a terrifying way, all curved lines and impossible angles that seemed to bend space around it. Before Isabella could initiate first contact protocols, the ship emitted a pulse that cut through their communications like a knife through butter. "We've lost all external comms," Raj reported, his fingers flying over the controls. "They're scanning us." "Wait, they're not just scanning. They're downloading our entire database." Isabella's mind raced. The outpost contained not just their scientific research, but detailed information about Earth's defenses, colony locations, and technological capabilities. Whatever these aliens were, they were starting their relationship with humanity by stealing rather than asking. As she watched the alien ship scan progress, movement caught her eye through the viewport. A team of figures was emerging from the vessel, their forms obscured by environmental suits that seemed to shift and flow with their movements. They were heading toward the ancient ruins their archaeology team had discovered months ago, ruins that had baffled their best scientists with their advanced technology and indecipherable writings. "Dr. Nakamura," Isabella called to their chief archaeologist. "What exactly did we find in those ruins last week?" The Japanese scientist pulled up his latest findings on the main screen. "We finally managed to partially decode one of the warning glyphs," he explained, his voice tense. "It speaks of warriors from the void, world-enders who consume civilizations. But more importantly, it contains strategic information about their weaknesses and attack patterns." Isabella's blood ran cold as she watched the alien figures disappear into the ruins. If these were the world-enders the ruins warned about, they needed to act fast. But if they weren't, if they were another species altogether, humanity might have just made its first interstellar enemy through a tragic misunderstanding. The decision that faced her would shape humanity's future in the cosmos. Standard protocol dictated non-engagement with potentially hostile alien forces, but something in her gut told her there was more to this situation than met the eye. She noticed subtle differences between these aliens and the beings described in the ruins. Their movements were too precise, too calculated for the berserker warriors the glyphs depicted. "Raj, are you still able to access the archaeological database?" When he nodded, she continued, "Download everything we have on the ruins' language structure. I need to write something." Her crew watched in confusion as their captain began to write by hand on actual paper, something rarely seen in their digital age. She worked quickly, combining symbols from the ruins with standard Earth languages, creating a hybrid message that she hoped would be understandable to their visitors. "Captain," her security chief, Commander Laura Hansen, stepped forward. "What exactly are you planning?" Isabella held up the note, its surface covered in a mixture of Earth languages and the ancient symbols from the ruins. "I'm going out there," she announced, already moving toward the airlock. "Those beings aren't our enemies. They're looking for the same information we are. And I think I know why." As she suited up, she explained her theory to her stunned crew. The aliens weren't attacking. They were searching. The ruins weren't just warnings about the Void Warriors. They were a map of their invasion patterns. If she was right, these aliens had encountered the same threat and were preparing for their return. Isabella stepped out onto Europa's icy surface, the note clutched in her hand. Jupiter's massive form filled half the sky, casting everything in its red-tinged light. The alien figures had emerged from the ruins and were heading back to their ship. This was her only chance. She moved forward, holding the note out in front of her like a shield. The aliens stopped, their liquid metal suits rippling with tension. For a moment, nothing moved except the eternal ice storms of Europa, whipping around them in the thin atmosphere. Then one of the aliens stepped forward, reaching for the note with an appendage that shifted from a defensive weapon configuration to something more like a hand. As they took the note, Isabella held her breath, knowing that everything, humanity's first contact, their survival, their future in the stars, hinged on what happened next. The aliens studied the note, their suits' surface rippling with patterns that seemed to indicate rapid communication with their companions. Finally, they turned back to Isabella and made a gesture that transcended species. They extended their hand in what could only be interpreted as an invitation to come aboard their ship. Behind her, Meridian Outpost stood silent and waiting. Before her, an alien vessel promised either doom or salvation for humanity, and in between, a simple note written on paper carried the weight of two civilizations' futures. Isabella took the alien's hand and stepped forward into history. The interior of the alien vessel defied human engineering principles. Corridors shifted and reformed as Isabella followed her guide, the walls seeming to breathe with a life of their own. Her suit's sensors struggled to make sense of the readings. The atmosphere was breathable, but filled with particles that glowed with bioluminescent light. The alien leading her hadn't spoken, but their movements conveyed urgency. Behind them, two more figures followed at a distance, their liquid metal suits occasionally rippling with patterns that Isabella suspected was their form of communication. She kept her hand near her translator device, though something told her conventional language wouldn't be their primary challenge. They entered what appeared to be a command center, though it bore little resemblance to the rigid military structure of Meridian Outpost. The chamber was circular, with what looked like organic technology growing from the walls and ceiling. In the center stood a figure nearly 3 meters tall, their suit more elaborate than the others, with swirling patterns that seemed to hold meaning in their complexity. The tall figure's suit suddenly retracted, revealing their true form for the first time. Isabella fought to keep her composure as she studied the being before her. The Krylov, as her translator finally managed to identify them, had an exoskeleton that seemed to be made of living crystal, with multiple limbs that could reconfigure themselves for different purposes. Their head housed several sensory organs that pulsed with internal light, and what appeared to be crystalline formations grew from their shoulders and back. "I am Guardian Vextrix." The being's words appeared directly in Isabella's mind, accompanied by a sensation of cold starlight. "You have brought us a message written in the tongue of the predecessors. Explain." Isabella straightened her spine, channeling every diplomatic training session she'd ever attended. "I am Captain Isabella Torres of the United Earth Fleet. The symbols come from ruins we discovered on this moon. They warn of a threat to all life, the Void Harbingers." The chamber's lighting shifted to deep purple, and Isabella felt a wave of emotional response from the assembled Krylov. Fear, recognition, and something deeper. Vextrix moved closer, their crystalline form catching and refracting the light in mesmerizing patterns. "Show me your thoughts of these ruins," Vextrix commanded. Before Isabella could respond, she felt a gentle pressure in her mind, like cool water flowing through her memories. She instinctively resisted. "Trust must flow both ways," she said firmly. "I shared our discovery with you. Now I need to know, have your people encountered these void harbingers before?" The chamber fell silent. The other Krylov had gone completely still, their suits frozen in mid-pattern. Vextrix studied Isabella with organs that pulsed with increasing intensity. Finally, they made a gesture, and the chamber's walls transformed into a three-dimensional star map. 3 cycles ago, they came to our home system. Vextrix's thoughts carried images of destruction. Entire planets reduced to lifeless husks, civilizations wiped out in days. We survived only because we had already developed phase shift technology. We've been tracking their movement patterns ever since, trying to understand their purpose. Isabella felt a chill run down her spine. The ruins contained tactical information about their attacks. That's why you came here. You're preparing for their return. As are you, though you didn't know it, Vextrix responded. Your species' development of quantum communication, your expansion into this system, all of it has been guided by fragments of predecessor technology, preparing you for what comes. The star map shifted, showing a pattern of destruction moving steadily through the galaxy. Isabella's tactical training kicked in as she studied the movement. They're not random attacks, she realized. They're systematically eliminating any civilization that reaches a certain level of technological advancement. And Earth is approaching that threshold. Vextrix extended one of their limbs, reconfiguring it to display a holographic countdown. Your world has 57 rotations before they arrive. We detected their scout ships at the edge of your system, but your technology cannot yet perceive them. Isabella's mind raced with the implications. That's why you were downloading our database. You weren't attacking, you were assessing our readiness. She paused, considering her next words carefully. We need each other. Your technology, combined with the tactical information from the ruins, might give us a chance. The Guardian's crystalline form shifted, plates realigning in what Isabella was beginning to recognize as an expression of deep thought. Perhaps. But there is something we must know first. They gestured, and the wall behind them transformed into a viewport showing Europa's surface. Meridian Outpost stood alone against the ice storms, its lights bright against the darkness. Your note combined predecessor symbols with your own writing in a way that showed deep understanding of both. Yet you chose to deliver it by hand, knowing the risk. Why? Isabella smiled slightly. Sometimes the most powerful message isn't in the words themselves, but in how you choose to deliver them. I needed you to see that humans are willing to take the first step, to trust even in the face of uncertainty. The chamber's lighting shifted to a warm gold, and Isabella felt a wave of approval from the assembled Krylov. Vextrix moved closer, their crystalline form reconfiguring until they were at eye level with her. For 1,000 cycles, we have fought alone, trusting no one since our world burned. Perhaps, they paused, their sensory organs pulsing with new patterns, perhaps it is time for that to change. The Guardian raised their primary limb, and the chamber filled with holographic displays, showing Krylov ship movements throughout the solar system. We have much to teach each other, and little time. Are you prepared to bear the responsibility of joining our knowledge with yours? The Void Harbingers will show no mercy if we fail. Isabella thought of Earth, of the billions who had no idea of the doom approaching their world. She thought of her crew in Meridian Outpost, who had trusted her decision to board this alien ship. The weight of it all should have been crushing, but instead, she felt a surge of determination. We're ready, she said, her voice firm. And this time, when they come, they'll find us standing together. The chamber's organic technology pulsed with new energy, and Isabella saw her own determination reflected in the crystalline faces of the Krylov around her. The next 57 days would change everything. For humanity, for the Krylov, and for the galaxy itself. The war for survival was about to begin. Time moved differently aboard the Krylov vessel. Isabella spent what felt like hours in their tactical chamber, absorbing information about an enemy that defied conventional understanding. The Void Harbingers weren't just aliens. They were something far worse. They exist partially outside normal spacetime. Vextrix explained, their crystalline form projecting complex mathematical models into the air. Our weapons pass through them like they're shooting at shadows. But your quantum communication technology, it's accidentally stumbled upon their weakness. The holographic display showed recordings from previous battles. The Void Harbinger ships looked like tears in reality, darkness given form. They phased through normal matter effortlessly, making conventional defenses useless. But when they attacked, they had to partially materialize. Commander Raj, Isabella spoke into her comm unit, connected now to Meridian Outpost through the Krylith's superior technology. I need you to send all our quantum entanglement research data to the Krylith ship. Already done, Captain, Raj replied, his voice steady despite the stress of the situation. Dr. Nakamura has also finished translating another section of the ruins. You're going to want to see this. The new data appeared in the tactical display, ancient symbols transforming into modern language. Isabella felt Vextrix's presence in her mind tense with recognition. The ruins weren't just a warning. They were a blueprint. The predecessors found a way to fight them. Isabella breathed, studying the complex diagrams. They developed technology that could force the Harbingers fully into our reality. But they vanished before they could implement it. Vextrix added, their crystalline plates shifting in what Isabella now recognized as frustration. We found similar ruins across 12 systems, all with pieces of the solution, but never the complete picture. Lieutenant Commander Kira Yoshida's voice cut through the chamber. Captain, we're detecting multiple quantum fluctuations at the edge of the solar system. They're coming faster than predicted. The tactical display shifted, showing void black tears appearing in space. First dozens, then hundreds. The Harbinger scout ships had been a feint. The main fleet was arriving now. All Earth Defense Forces, this is Captain Torres. Isabella broadcast on all frequencies. We are facing a level Omega threat. Implement First Contact Protocol 7 immediately. This is not a drill. She turned to Vextrix, her mind already racing with possibilities. Your phase shift technology and our quantum communications, we can combine them. Create weapons that exist in the same partial state as the Harbingers. The Guardian's sensory organs pulsed with rapid calculations. It would require perfect synchronization between our forces. No species has ever successfully integrated their technology with ours. Then we'll be the first, Isabella stated firmly. Humanity is good at doing the impossible when our backs are against the wall. The next 48 hours became a blur of activity. Krylith ships emerged from hiding all across the solar system. Their liquid metal hulls were forming to accommodate human quantum technology. Engineers from Meridian Outpost worked alongside crystalline aliens, breaking down barriers of biology and culture in their race against time. Isabella stood in the newly established Joint Command Center, watching as human and Krylith vessels formed up in defensive patterns around Earth and its colonies. The modified weapons were untested, based on theoretical physics and ancient alien blueprints. If they were wrong, humanity's first war among the stars would also be its last. Enemy fleet approaching Mars orbit, Raj reported, his voice tense. First wave appears to be Planet Killer class vessels. The tactical display showed the Void Harbinger ships, reality-torn wounds in space advancing with terrible purpose. They moved like a swarm of locusts, consuming everything in their path. A research outpost on Phobos vanished in seconds, its matter scattered across dimensions. All ships, execute Battle Plan Titan, Isabella commanded. Human and Krylith vessels moved in perfect synchronization, their modified weapons charging with both quantum energy and phase shift fields. The first shots fired looked like streams of fractured light, existing simultaneously in multiple states of reality. They struck the leading Harbinger vessel and passed through it completely. No effect. Kira reported, her fingers dancing across the controls. They're adapting faster than the simulations predicted. Isabella felt Vextrix's frustration mirror her own. Then she noticed something in the tactical display, a pattern in the way the Harbinger ships moved when avoiding debris. They're not adapting, she realized suddenly. They're scared. Look at their formation. They're protecting something in the center of their fleet. The Guardian's crystalline form shifted as they analyzed the data. The phase variance. There's a frequency modulation we didn't account for. Your quantum fields aren't failing. They're resonating with the wrong harmonic. Isabella's tactical training kicked in. All ships adjust quantum frequencies to match Harbinger phase variance. Target their fleet's center mass. Fire on my mark. The joint fleet's weapons shifted tone, their energy signatures changing to match the ethereal patterns of their enemy. Isabella held her breath, watching the tactical display as hundreds of ships prepared to fire. Mark. The combined firepower of two civilizations lashed out at the Void Harbinger's fleet. This time, the weapons didn't pass through. They struck home with devastating effect, forcing portions of the enemy fleet into normal space-time. Where before there had been untouchable shadows, now there were vulnerable ships. Multiple direct hits. Kira reported, excitement breaking through her professional tone. Enemy vessels showing signs of physical damage. They're breaking formation. But victory celebrations were premature. The Harbinger fleet's center opened, revealing something that made both humans and Krylith recoil in horror. It was a ship larger than anything they'd ever seen, its surface a writhing mass of dimensional tears. The Worldrender, Vextrix's thoughts carried ancient terror. They'd brought their flagship. As the massive vessel oriented toward Earth, Isabella realized the real battle was just beginning. They'd proven the Harbingers could be hurt, but now they faced the full might of a force that had destroyed civilizations far more advanced than their own. The fate of two species would be decided in the next few hours, and Isabella Torres stood at the center of it all, a human captain and an alien guardian united against the darkness between stars. All ships, she commanded, her voice steady despite her racing heart, prepare for combat. We don't stop until every last one of them is gone, or we are. Today we fight for both our worlds. The final battle for Earth was about to begin. The Worldrender's first attack shattered Mars' smaller moon Deimos, the debris field distorting across multiple dimensions. Isabella watched in horror as reality itself seemed to crack around the destruction. All ships, execute evasive pattern Delta, she commanded. Don't let them isolate any of our vessels. The combined human Krylith fleet moved as one, their modified weapons continuing to fire at the smaller Harbinger ships. Captain, Raj's voice was urgent. Dr. Nakamura's found something else in the ruins. The predecessors' weapons weren't just about forcing the Harbingers into our reality. They were trying to trap them here permanently. Vextrix's crystalline form pulsed with sudden understanding. The quantum resonance. It's not just affecting their ship's phase state. It's creating a dimensional anchor. Isabella's mind raced with the implications. If we can trap the Worldrender in normal space, we would have one chance to strike. The Guardian finished. But the energy required would burn out every quantum device in the fleet. We would be defenseless. Through the tactical display, Isabella watched Earth slowly rotating below, billions of lives unaware of the battle being fought for their survival. The Worldrender was moving closer, its dimensional distortions growing stronger. Lieutenant Commander Yoshida, Isabella called, can we reconfigure the quantum field generators to create a single concentrated burst? Yes, but Kira hesitated. We'd have to get every ship in the fleet close enough to synchronize their fields. One hit from that thing while we're gathering would destroy us all, Isabella finished. But we're dead anyway if we don't try. She turned to Vextrix. Your people have fought alone for so long. Will you trust humanity with everything now? The Guardian's sensory organs pulsed with complex patterns before they responded. We watched 1,000 worlds fall because they tried to stand alone. We will not make that mistake again. The next few minutes were organized chaos as the combined fleet executed their desperate plan. Human quantum technology merged with Krylith phase shift fields in ways never before attempted. Every ship moved into precise formation, creating a web of energy around the massive Harbinger vessel. The Worldrender seemed to sense their intention. It lashed out with weapons that distorted space itself, catching several ships in fields of twisted reality. Isabella watched as both human and Krylith crews sacrificed themselves to maintain the formation, their ships continuing to power the quantum web even as they were torn apart. Field synchronization at 89%, Kira reported, her voice steady despite the destruction around them. We need full alignment for this to work. Harbinger support ships moving to intervene, Raj added. They'll reach us in 30 seconds. Isabella felt Vextrix's presence in her mind, their thoughts aligning with crystal clarity. In that moment, she understood what needed to be done. All ships, synchronize your quantum fields with the command vessel, she ordered. Guardian, on my mark, channel every bit of phase shift energy you have through our systems. The Worldrender loomed before them, a tear in the fabric of existence preparing to deliver its killing blow. But in that moment, humanity's quantum science and the Krylith's phase technology achieved perfect harmony. Now, a pulse of energy, unlike anything ever created by either species, erupted from the combined fleet. For a brief moment, reality itself seemed to hold its breath. Then the Worldrender's dimensional distortions began to collapse, forced into normal spacetime by the quantum web. Target locked, Kira announced. All weapons ready. Isabella took one last look at the tactical display, at human and Krylith ships, fighting as one against the darkness. Fire everything. The combined firepower of two civilizations struck the Worldrender simultaneously. Without its dimensional shifting abilities, the massive vessel was vulnerable. Its surface buckled under the assault, reality-torn weapons failing as normal physics reasserted themselves. The explosion, when it came, rippled across multiple dimensions. Isabella felt the shock wave through the ship's hull, heard the groaning of metal and crystal as their vessels were pushed to their limits. When the light faded, the Worldrender was gone. The remaining Harbinger ships, cut off from their flagship's power, began to fall into normal space. The combined fleet, despite heavy losses, moved to finish the battle. Hours later, as the last Void Harbinger ship was destroyed, Isabella stood looking at Earth through the command center's viewport. The planet seemed different now, no longer humanity's sole domain, but a symbol of something greater. We won, she said softly, feeling Vextrix's presence beside her. We survived, the Guardian corrected. But this was only their first fleet. There will be others. Isabella nodded, already thinking of the work ahead. Then we'll be ready for them. Together. The battle was over, but the real challenge, building a lasting alliance between humans and Krylith, was just beginning. 1 year after the Battle of Earth, Meridian Outpost had transformed. What was once a simple research station now served as the headquarters for the Human Krylith Defense Coalition. The facility's architecture reflected its new purpose, combining Earth's angular efficiency with Krylith crystalline aesthetics. Isabella stood in the newly constructed Alliance Chamber, watching as human scientists worked alongside Krylith engineers. They were studying the combined technology that had defeated the Worldrender, working to improve it for the battles they knew would come. The quantum anchoring theory has been fully validated, Dr. Nakamura reported, his holographic image floating beside a Krylith crystalline display. We can replicate the effect with 60% less energy consumption now. And our phase shift drives have been successfully integrated with human quantum navigation, added Turlax, a young Krylith engineer whose crystal formations were still growing. The joint fleet's operational range has doubled. Isabella smiled, remembering how impossible such cooperation had seemed just a year ago. The note that had started it all was now preserved in a special chamber, a symbol of how trust could bridge even the vastness of space. Captain Torres, Raj's voice came through her comm unit. The Council is ready for your report. She made her way to the command center, where representatives from both species waited. The human delegates sat alongside their Krylith counterparts, their differences forgotten in the face of their shared purpose. The deep space sensors we recovered from the ruins are operational, Isabella began. We've detected 3 more Harbinger fleets moving through distant sectors. But thanks to our combined technology, we can track them now. More importantly, we can predict where they'll strike next. Vextrix, now serving as the Krylov High Guardian, moved forward. We've identified 17 civilizations approaching the technological threshold that attracts the Harbingers. The Coalition fleet stands ready to defend them. The chamber filled with approving murmurs from both species. What had begun as an alliance of necessity had evolved into something more. A commitment to protect other worlds from the fate that had befallen so many. There's something else, Isabella continued. The ruins contain references to other species who fought the Harbingers. Some may have survived, hidden as we were. With our combined resources, we can find them. The implications were clear. Every species they found, every civilization they saved, would make them stronger. The Void Harbingers had spent eons isolating and destroying advanced civilizations. Now, for the first time, those civilizations would stand together. Later, as Jupiter's light painted the ice storms of Europa in brilliant colors, Isabella found herself back at the viewport where it had all begun. Vextrix joined her, their crystalline form refracting the light in mesmerizing patterns. The predecessors left us more than weapons, the Guardian observed. They left us hope, the knowledge that different species could work together, could become stronger than the sum of their parts. Isabella nodded, thinking of how far they'd come. Human quantum physics and Krylov phase technology had just been the beginning. Every day brought new breakthroughs as both species learned from each other, growing beyond their original limitations. A year ago, I wrote a note in 2 languages, hoping to prevent a war, she said. I never imagined it would lead to all this. Perhaps that is why it worked, Vextrix replied. The greatest changes often come from the smallest acts of trust. Through the viewport, they could see the combined fleet in orbit around Europa. Human ships with crystalline modifications flew alongside Krylov vessels sporting quantum enhancement arrays. Each represented countless hours of cooperation, of 2 species learning to overcome their differences and fears. The Harbingers thought they could keep us divided, Isabella said. That fear and suspicion would make us easy prey. Instead, they'd brought us together. And together we will find others, Vextrix added. Build something that even the void cannot destroy. As if to emphasize their words, a new ship emerged from the shipyards, the first vessel designed and built jointly by humans and Krylov. Its hull combined the best of both species' technology, a physical symbol of what they could achieve together. Isabella touched the pocket where she kept a copy of the original note, now more symbol than document. In the end, it hadn't been advanced technology or powerful weapons that had saved them. It had been the willingness to take a chance on trust, to reach across the void between species and find common ground. The ice storms of Europa continued their eternal dance, but they seemed different now, not a barrier, but a reminder of how far they'd come and how far they could still go. The Void Harbingers would return, stronger than before. But when they did, they would find something unprecedented. A galaxy learning to stand together, building bridges across the stars. The note that had started it all had been written in 2 languages. The future would be written in many more, as species after species joined the alliance that had begun here, on a small moon orbiting a gas giant, when a human captain had chosen trust over fear. And somewhere in the depths of space, other civilizations waited to be found, to join the growing coalition. The war wasn't over, it was just beginning. But this time, the galaxy would face it united.